Hey everybody, what's going on? I'm DJ Sixsmith. You're watching The Sit Down, special edition of The Sit Down. We got Selenis and Marizol with us. Levya sisters, they got their brand new book, My Sister. Guys, how you doing with this whole quarantine thing right now?
It could be better, but at least we have accessibility to the virtual world, so we can keep in touch with our loved ones. We could promote our book by doing interviews, so it could be worse.
I totally agree.
So I'm really happy to be talking with you guys and really excited to get into your lives and this book. So Selenis, why don't we start with you? How did this whole thing come together? And I'm sure it was really cathartic for you guys to put it all down on paper. So what were some of the big things you took away from it?
I think that, for me, it was important to just use my platform. I believe that if you have a platform, you have a responsibility to do more than just promote your work and yourself and your red carpet moments. So for me, being an ally of the LGBTQ plus community, since I can remember, I felt that it was really important to honor my sister and give her an opportunity to share her experience as a trans woman. We usually, for the last couple of years, perhaps we've had more conversations about the trans community, but I think that the representation of the Latinx voice, the middle to lower class voice, the not famous voice needed to have its time to be heard, and I felt it was really important and vital for us all to hear our different stories, to hopefully have empathy and respect one another. So for me, it was just using my platform during a time that I feel people are ready to hear the stories that need to be told.
Marizol, why don't you jump in here? What's it been like for you, not only telling your story, but like your sister said, just seeing the transition the last couple of years and really increasing this conversation around LGBTQ people?
Yes, for me, it's been an amazing experience for the simple fact that I've been completely blessed to have my sister give me a platform to build for myself and my community and start conversations that often aren't had. And so the experience with me going through that and starting the conversations and sharing our story has been really an amazing feeling and super humbling, because there's other people out there like myself and often feel like their voice aren't being heard or they're silenced to the experiences they're going through. So when I was presented with this opportunity to write a book with my sister, I was just like, this is beyond me. This is more about like my community and like really getting out there and discussing about the conversations that aren't had, sharing my story so people can be able to resonate and be authentic and live in their truth.
Yeah, I give you guys a ton of credit for talking about this publicly, and I'm sure the family conversations were really difficult at times and really fascinating at times. So I think identity plays a huge part in this. So Marizol, why don't we start with you here? Just take us back to just what those initial conversations were like for you during your transition and when you were trying to figure things out.
The conversations weren't really had directly with my family members. It was more about like me breaking it down to my sister and my sister passing down the information down to my other family members and kind of like just learning throughout the way of my transition. Because again, I wasn't really aware in the beginning or before of not even knowing that the trans people existed and they were out there. And so when I came in terms and connected with people like myself and asking questions and then utilizing the internet to do some research, I realized that, there was a whole nother world out there and that we did exist. And so throughout my experiences, that's how I kind of helped my sister to kind of like guide some of my family members into what I was going through and where I was going with transition.
And Selenis, for you, when you think about that responsibility, not only in dealing with your sister, but in dealing with other people in your family, what was that experience like for you?
I think that, I've always had that responsibility. I talk about it in the book. As the oldest daughter, as the oldest in my family, also as the child of immigrants, you from an early age, you're expected to kind of like almost perform as an older person. So I've always had the responsibility to somehow guide my family members. So this kind of just was natural. And it was, thank God that I had the relationship that I do with my parents and my other siblings, that I was able to kind of like have them hear me, you know, have them hear me out. And it wasn't easy, and it's not, even to this day, it's not saying that everyone is 100% on board, you know, but there is a level of respect, and there is a level of wanting to understand more. It's exhausting at times, I'm not going to lie to you. I think that having your own life, having your own career, having your own child, and your own everything, and also then on top of that, having the responsibility to continuously to educate people, can be exhausting, but I think it's also needed. So what I do is, you know, whenever I need to take the breather, I step back, I take a breather, but always come forward, because it's important to me to have everybody that I love be on the same page.
Yeah, I think it's really important to have boundaries with people and just with yourself. I think it's really important to just educate people. You may not change everybody's minds, but I think conversations like this go a long way. I think TV and film certainly helps with that. I really think about Orange is the New Black and how transformative that show was. And like, you're going through this in your personal life, you're seeing this on TV. Like, that must have been wild for you, Selenis.
It was kind of crazy, because at the same time, you know, when we started with Orange is the New Black on Netflix, nobody knew what streaming was going to be like. We were the guinea pigs.
Yeah, streaming wasn't a thing at that point.
It wasn't a thing, you know, so here we were kind of like entering this new world where I was like, is this a web series? I didn't know what to expect. And then on top of that, it was like a cast of women, diverse women. We weren't walking around in heels and like high-waisted like skirts. We were like heavy duty in it, and dealing with a lot of issues that I felt I wasn't sure who was going to be into it, who was going to be open to it. And then I met Laverne Cox on the show, and I thought, oh my gosh, you know, here's a trans woman who was going to be representing and being the voice to a lot of people. Like, I immediately knew that her role on the show and her role outside of the show was going to be monumental.